So in the event sequence section here, you'll notice a number of predefined events or sequences in here. Number one is set up as none. So if you're going to manually enter each race distance as the meet progresses, you would choose this. We have the boys high school, girls high school, boys girls, so on and so forth. The NC2A 13, 15, and 16 event programs. And then 8 and 9 are set up as user defined. So I could potentially go into 8 or 9, or any one of these I can actually overwrite or edit or change around how I want to do it, how the sequence is set up. However, since a vast majority of facilities use some sort of a meet manager program like High-Tech, we can actually dump the event sequence that's predefined in Meet Manager over into the System 6 and use that, so that every time we hit a next event or the next event key on the System 6, it goes in and it looks up and it sees what the next race distance is and whether it's say boys or girls, that sort of thing. So now, while the most common is to store those particular races in either 8 or 9, like I said, they can actually be written into any one of these slots. And I can also go in with this number 0. I can highlight a particular one, like this case, the one that's red, the boys high school, and I can go in and view and edit that sequence if you want. The manual has a good section on how to actually go in and edit or set up one from the keyboard. Like I say though, since the vast majority run one through Meet Manager and just dump it over into the System 6, that's what we're going to go over here. So what we're going to do is I'm going to shift over here and let me pull Meet Manager up, and we will start that here so that we can see how all this works. Alright, so on the Meet Manager side of things, what I need to do is I need to actually go in here and set up what COM port I'm going to talk to the System 6. Now keep in mind your serial cable needs to be plugged into your System 6 on the COM1 port of the back of the timer. So I've got a USB to serial adapter, which is very common nowadays. So I'm going to go into Control Panel. This happens to be Windows 7. So I can go to Control Panel and go to Device Manager. And then as Device Manager slowly boots up here, I can come down to Ports, and I can find that my USB to serial port adapter is on COM8. So I can close out of there, close out of Control Panel. Let's go back to Meet Manager. And in the Run menu, I need to go to Interfaces and go to Timer and open and close serial port. So that number 8 is what is the COM port that I'm talking out of my laptop to the System 6 on. So I need to put in 8 and I need to press OK, and you'll notice that I get the communications passed, so I can click OK. So at this point we are talking to the System 6. Now, as you may recall, I left the System 6 sitting in the setup screen. So if I go back in here and I tell it to download an event to the CTS6, it brings me up this grid that allows me to choose where I want to set it at or send it to. So in this case, number 8. If I click OK, it'll give me a warning message to please take the timer out of the setup screen. So and it'll also tell me that the download did not complete. So in this case, I'm going to go back over to my 6, and I'm going to quit out of there. I'm going to come back into Interfaces, Timer, download events to CTS6, choose user defined slot 8, and I'm going to click OK. And it's done. Now I have I don't know how big of a meet I have set up here, but it is all set. It has all been transferred over at this point. So now back on the System 6, if I go back into the setups, and notice that under the event sequence that there now shows, instead of being user defined under number 8, it shows a demo meet. So that's the one I downloaded from Meet Manager into the System 6. And it's already chosen. It's showing up in red. At this point it's ready to go. If I needed to choose any other event, I just literally enter that number on the 10 keypad, and it'll be set. To actually start running this meet, I would need to hit quit on to the right of the screen, and then I would need to hit the edit event sequence button, and I'd go to event 1, heat 1, and there you see the first event of the event sequence I sent over was the 100 girls freestyle final. So go back into setups here real quick. That's basically all there is to it. If you have communications issues, keep in mind it's usually related to the COM port that you're assigning, or that Windows assigns on the laptop that you're running Meet Manager on. Bear in mind that the USB to serial adapters, when I plug it into one particular USB port, Windows assigns a certain number. Like in our case, it assigned COM 8. If I switch that over to another one of my available USB ports on that laptop, Windows is going to assign a different COM number. So it's always good check to go back into Device Manager via Control Panel in your Windows laptop and see what COM port got Windows assigned to that adapter, to make sure that you have no issues. That wraps up the event sequence. The last two on here, set date and time, are fairly straightforward. Setting time of day, setting the date, and whether or not you want number 3, whether you want it to show up as a 12-hour or 24-hour clock. The only real caveat to this all is under set the time. You need to enter it in a 24 hours style, so and it needs to have minutes and seconds entered, is the only key. And you use this through the 10 keypad down at the bottom and hit enter when you're done. The date is very straightforward starting with, and it's a little can be a little strange to when you start entering it. If I do this and you're just doing a 2-digit year, you start with the month, the day of the year, and you hit enter. On the wireless side of the setups, this pertains only if you have two of our SkyFi adapters to run scoreboard data wirelessly from the 6 up to your numeric scoreboard. What this allows you to do in the System 6 is actually do some changes to the adapter. Let's say you're getting interference or what have you, and you wanted to change the channels. You can do that via 3 and 4. The thing that you want to do first, though, is you want to make absolutely certain you change the receiver channel first and then the transmitter channel. Otherwise, you won't be able to, if you change the transmitter first, you won't be able to change the receiver channel without physically going up and changing the dip switches that are on the SkyFi. And if you have questions or concerns about that, look through the SkyFi manual. It actually tells you how that works as far as the dip switches go to set the channel. But keep in mind that anything I send it, any command I send it to change the channel via the System 6, that overrides whatever those dip switch settings are, and it will retain those if you power them down and power them back up. So 1 and 2 allow us to put the wireless channel up on the scoreboard, so that just for whatever reason you want to make sure that you've got the right channel. And number 2 allows us to show what the wireless firmware version is. If say later down the road we released a firmware upgrade for the SkyFis, you could verify that through here to see what version you actually have on your SkyFi. So this is literally the end of the setups, and at this point we're going to go in and we're going to start talking about how to set up for a meet with the hardware and actually run kind of a simulated meet and things to look for on the with the System 6 in that regard.